Get you out of here quickly as we can. I know, that's my heart. Good evening once again. We're here now for the Committee of the Whole meeting, Park and Recreations, Public Safety, Utilities. Again, we're here at 790 Homestead Boulevard. Madam Clerk, call the roll. It is now 6:02.
Councilman Burgess.
Here.
Councilwoman Lobos. Councilman Maldonado.
Here.
Councilman Shelley.
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Woolman.
Here.
Mayor Bateman.
Here. Okay, additions, deletions, deferrals. Mr. Manager, any additions, any deletions, deferrals?
No, Mayor.
Fellow council members? Okay. Minutes from June 14th.
Move it, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, first item here we have to get involved in is decision on the bowling alley. Entertain a motion to move it on to the floor. Second? Okay, staff report. Talk to us.
Mayor, I guess LaLaye and the bowling alley started around the same time, if not the same meeting. And so we thought this was a good opportunity to have Mr. Kaufman come and brief you on his progress. And then from there, we'll get some direction from the council. Mr. Kaufman?
Okay, Mr. Kaufman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, members of the council, Mr. Manager. First, I want to thank staff for their best wishes to myself and my family on my daughter's recent marriage. They have been
Congratulations.
Most kind in their well wishes. In fact, we cut our stay in New York a week short to make it to the meeting here tonight. Staff has been very responsible working with us. Any delays associated with finalizing this project are on our side only. It's not anything attributable to staff. We had our last meeting in June with the city manager and his staff, and our proposed investor, who is the Orion Investment Company, was present at that meeting so that staff had a chance to meet and question them. Since that time, we've been fortunate to have a second group of investors approach us and sign a commitment that they would work with us if Orion was not able to produce the deal. So we have two potential partners backing up each other with the financial capacity to do the deal. We've requested just prior to this meeting that the city manager set up some time next week for us to complete negotiations with the city to finalize the deal, with the intent of it not running more than 1 week beyond that. So our view is that we would like to have the entire package put together within the next 2 weeks. At that point, we would look to have it presented to council at its earliest convenience for final approval. Once we have prepared a basic contract for sale with staff, if necessary prior to the next meeting with the council, we will post a 10% deposit on the property on the agreed upon price and provide proof of funds to close the transaction. At the latest, we would want to have the final closing completed with the city by the end of August, and I'm making an assumption here that it might have to go to your August council meeting. I'm not sure of the total process at the end of the day. Based upon that, we're planning to start our design work at that time, and we would look to have our permits issued in phases between October and December. Interior demolition and roof repairs would be expected to commence at the end of October, and new construction starting in December and being completed in April. We anticipate the facility is going to have a soft opening in mid-April and a grand opening at the end of May. This will allow the facility to serve the summer market and be available at the start of the regular year league play, which occurs at the end of August for us. We've worked very diligently to build a team of strong investors who can be with this project for a long term and give us the best chance of success, and we'd like the opportunity to bring this deal to a close at this point in time. I'll take any questions.
Mayor,
Yes.
question. When you say that your investor, I guess we dialogued with them last month, but you say you have a second investor. Is there any reason why the first investor, with all the information that you provided, would not go through with?
No, but we decided that given that they came to us because they were contacted previously, that we would at least get a letter of agreement with them in case for some reason in the negotiation the first investor decided not to proceed. There are several points open in the negotiation, the most critical of which is going to be the restriction of use on the property and to how long that's going to be in place. And both investors have a different view of that. The actual construction of the deal is going to be that myself and the investing group are going to form a new entity. We will be the land owners of the deal. We will put up the money to do all the renovations to the project. The management of the bowling center will happen separately with Joshua and Andre, and they will be responsible to us, and the revenues will flow upward from them. The real estate entity is going to give them a 20-year lease on the building with 2 10-year options. So we're looking at a 40-year life cycle after we make the investments of $3.5 million on top of the purchase to renovate the facility. So we've tried to construct an arrangement at the end of the day that would give us maximum flexibility to meet with the city. And each investor group has a different set of goals and criteria in the deal. And between one or perhaps an amalgamation of both, I feel very comfortable I can close this deal in the next 2 weeks. And it would be more beneficial for the city for me to have both sides at my side to generate the best possible arrangement between the city and ourselves.
Follow-up question, Mayor.
Please.
And you say in a time frame of 2 weeks that you'll be able to perhaps close on either investor?
Yes, we would like to be at the end of the second week in a position where we have either a letter of intent signed, or if it has to go to attorneys to be finalized, the wording, that letter of intent is then we've started the construction of the formal sale agreement, be that happening through the city attorney or through our attorney. But we probably have 2 meetings just to hash out the final details and then be able to turn it over to the attorneys to perform.
What do you estimate the renovation costs?
Renovation costs break down into several categories.
Just a total number. You don't have to give it to me later.
There is approximately $1.5 million going for pure renovation of the building, fixing the leaks, repairing the building, replacing the missing air conditioning equipment, the bricks and mortar of the structure. There's another $1.5 million in FF&E and startup costs, and there's an additional $500,000 going into the restaurant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you elaborate? You said that the restrictions that were placed on the property in the contract were a concern to you, I believe?
Well, it's of a concern to our investment partners and to the lenders. If the property is going to be restricted to a bowling alley use only, and the time constraint of that gets to be too excessive, there's a definitive loss in value in the property from a real estate standpoint. And we need to discuss how that affects both our purchase price and our investment in the property. We are, as business people, committing to an initial 20-year operation there. By year 3, it'll prove out one way or another. We're providing enough setup capital into the business that they will have 3 years of running time to make this into the success we believe it will be. But if the property is going to have, per se, a 10-year restrictive covenant on it, even though we're buying the property outright, it creates some other issues for all parties involved, and we need to address that.
Mayor, I think I was the one that offered that covenant up when we first started discussing some of this property stuff with the school here and all that. And you given me a total expenditure tonight of about $7 million, and for your startup and your initial investment of the purchase and all that. And I've got to say that in 3 years, I mean, to me, that's tough to cover. But my fear is that in 3 years, no matter what, the economy's turned around and the bowling alley's gone. Even with a 20-year commitment, you know, you guys can come in and say, well, in 3 years we didn't make it, and we own the land and we're going to do what we want.
Right,
As far as I
that's
know.
part of the give and take of the negotiations, and I think we've heard their concern. I think they understand our concern, and that's one of the big issues that we have to iron out. And so I think what he's saying is, to a certain extent, that's the big concern for the investors, because obviously, you know,
it's going to be a hurdle with me, because I think I've heard nothing but from people in the community that that's what they want to have there, and I wish you all the luck. I mean, I'll be over there with my son. He loves the bowl. And but my biggest concern is that down the road, and I had the same concern with the gentleman from the school that was here, and that's why I offered up that evening, is I don't want to see that turned over in 3 years and the city lost out on $10 million of income that could have been sold on property, because that's a prime piece of real estate in our community. And that's why I offered that up, and that will remain a concern of mine. So as the management team moves forward, let it be known that that's a big concern to me.
No, and we hear what you have to say, and we appreciate what the goals of the city council are in this. And we need to sensitize the manager and staff to our issues with that goal. And we feel there's a place in the middle we can all be at, or some terms and conditions that can be brought up. But when you go out and you talk to people and you say, hey, I want to borrow $5 million, but by the way, there's a restriction on the land, you understand the skepticism that, you know, we've been met with at the end in talking to various lenders and various investors. We now have a group that shares our vision of a bowling center, and that while there is a real estate transactional standpoint of the land, the rent being paid for by the bowling facility and the profits from the bowling facility, we feel are going to outweigh the short-term value increase of the property. What the property may be worth 20 years from now, I don't have an idea, but we feel we can generate revenues that will give them a rate of return that would offset the desire to want to sell the property off for another use. And one of the reasons we decided to structure the management arrangements with a lease is we don't want the opportunity where our investors could come back to us and say something and want to turn into a different direction, and we are running a profitable business and we want it to stay there. So on our side, we're trying to construct the legal mechanism in place to guarantee that the operation is going to be stable and not held hostage to a real estate boom.
That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to agree with my colleague, because I think the whole premise and purpose behind this was to make sure that it stays a bowling alley, and that, you know, I would be not willing to lift those restrictions before that purpose, because I think as time has gone on, people are anticipating that as a bowling alley. And I understand sometimes business can take a turn, and you know, so you put so much into it. But at the same time, I think those restrictions, and I understand the sensitivity of what you're trying to do, but at the same time, I think that we must maintain the integrity of our position, in that it maintains with those restrictions in place. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Shelley?
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, people I've spoken to, they want this to be a bowling alley, so I think to allow it to end up turning into something else wouldn't, you know, isn't exactly in the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. But my big question, I guess, is tonight is kind of where we're going with this tonight. I mean, you know, one of the things I want to make sure is that we don't just kind of languish with this idea for a while. They can't get the financing. They can't get the financing. You know, I want to try to maybe establish some sort of a time frame so that we can if this doesn't work, I know there's other people that are interested in the property as well for bowling alley purposes and things. Now, whether they're viable or not, I don't know. But I just want to make sure that we keep the process moving forward so that we can get a bowling alley into that facility sooner rather than later. And I don't know the best way to accomplish that. I don't know. I mean, they mentioned 2 weeks, so I don't know, do we give them 2 weeks? And if they don't, then we readdress this at the next CAL meeting? I mean, what do you envision as far as the time frame?
If it pleases the council, what I would suggest is that we have our meeting, we have an understanding that at next month's CAL, either we have something to present for you that is a final deal, or we'll have a draft RFP to open this up to other bowling entities or other. You should be aware that we have an entity that's looking to do a shooting range there. So I told them the same thing, that whatever you decide now, if you open it up the process next month, then you'll have to decide, do you want just bowling? Do you want to open it up to others? Hopefully by next month we'll have a signed agreement, we'll have proof of financing, and then this won't be an issue. But if we can have that understanding for that deadline so that they understand that next month at the CAL, they're going to have to come in with the final agreement, or we'll be going out for process.
I support that.
No, I just want to ask a question too. Let me ask you, you've already ironed out all the wrinkles on the city side. Is that correct? Do you feel comfortable? Because 2 weeks is not going to do it. If you're going to go iron it out and the problems they have now with it. I mean, if we're not ready to go now, and in 2 weeks they come up and they still want to talk about owning the property now or not owning the property or this problem or that problem, put your RFP together now. Give them 30 days. Give them 60 days, because the RFP is on the street. You know, do the RFP. Get the RFP going now. Look, nobody was a bigger supporter of them than me, but time's up. You know, we need to get moving.
I think the answer to your question is, are there major wrinkles in the negotiations? At issue so far is, our biggest concern has been proof of financing. We believe all the other issues, like Lale, will kind of iron themselves out, but until they can prove to us that they have secured financing, it's very difficult to finalize the agreements. I think we have some discussion left on the issue of the restrictions on the property, and we have the issue of price. They're clear what our position is. I think they feel they need to do the dance, as we all do with these negotiations, and they want to do their dance. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think those are going to be as much of an issue as, do they have secured financing. And I think what he's saying is he needs 2 weeks to finalize that. The one concern I'd have for them to send it out for proposals now is that may make their investors skittish and then potentially undermine their deal. And what we've tried to do is just give them enough latitude. They have control of the ball for now until we take it away from them, and I would suggest if we could have that to the next CAL, which would be roughly a month from now, give us 2 weeks to finalize, and then if we see trouble, we'll notify you, we'll start drafting an RFP, and we'll have a draft for you at the next CAL.
Okay, I can live with that, providing they leave here tonight very clear of what form of proof of financing that they need. What will satisfy your team? Make sure they know tonight, so they don't come back in 2 weeks and say, that's not what we were told. In fact, let's put it in writing. What form? Letter of credit, some type of guarantee of a bond, whatever. But let's have it very clear of what you want in the next 2 weeks.
I think I'd want to talk to them I don't want to restrict them too much if it's one instrument versus another. But
give them 3, as long as you have 3 in writing, so that they leave out of here saying, we had one of these 3 or 4 to 5.
Okay, I'll tell you what, at the conclusion of this meeting, we can work with the attorneys and try to see if we can come up with something.
Send it to them tomorrow, whatever, but as long as we have something solid in writing, because
Absolutely.
I look at these different documents and I said, well, there's $5 million right there, but no, that's not really clear.
Right.
That's
All we've received so far is a letter that says these funds, X millions of dollars, I think it was 5, are available, but it really doesn't say
Available
whether
for
they're
what?
earmarked for the project, whether it's a commitment. And so I think we're going to need something that says this money, we're ready to, once closed, we have this money that will start the project.
In 24, 48 hours, we're gonna hit something to them that says one of these 3 or 4 items need to be in place. All right?
That's fine.
Okay. Good deal. Any other questions? Okay. There's no vote, so.
Thank you very
Can
much.
I ask one question?
Please.
Process-wise, we're as anxious to close this as you. Assuming we complete our negotiations in 2 weeks, we come back to the Committee of the Whole a month from now. Does the Committee of the Whole approve the transaction, and can we go to close, or does it have to go to a council meeting for approval?
It'd be a question for all you if you wanted to do a special call. We
did
could do
tonight.
that. And certainly, if magically we had the documents ready in 2 weeks, we could maybe even have it ready for the council meeting. But, you know, it really would depend on how quickly we can move.
No, but
I think what you
like
hear
your
from the
question.
council, though, is that they're flexible.
I like your question. It's
No, we've reached the point where the delays are over with and our investors are ready to move,
Okay.
and we need to conclude this
music
sooner
to
rather
our
than
ears.
later.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
We look forward to seeing you too, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Okay, I like those. That's good. Okay, tab 3, motion to place car 189 on council agenda, art in public places.
Move it.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, staff report.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this item was placed on the agenda for your consideration by Mr. Cordino, who is unable to be here this evening because he's on vacation, and asked me to discuss this matter, present this matter to you. As you all probably aware, back in 2010, the council approved an art in public places, or the public art ordinance. That ordinance basically specifies that there would be the creation of a public art fund, a public art committee, a master plan associated with the regulations and guidelines established within that master plan. And to date, that program has not been implemented. You all have established a public art fund, but the committee has not been appointed, the master plan has not been drafted, the guidelines or regulations to go with that have not been approved either. And so staff is looking for some direction from you all with regard to if you want to continue to proceed with implementing this ordinance, or if you are looking to defer action on it or possibly repeal the ordinance. So that's sort of where you are. This ties into your next item, which is an applicant who's coming in with regard to a proposed piece of art, or with a an item that needs your approval with regard to how to interpret the public art ordinance. So whatever you all decide with regard to moving forward with this is going to have some impact on the next item as well.
You want to start? Mr.
Yeah,
Jones,
sure,
go ahead. I was
yeah.
going to ask to go ahead, please. Jump
Oh,
on.
okay.
Well, mainly because I've sat manager pretty extensively on this, and I voted for it and in favor of it. I also asked the new development service director to put together a package of different incentives that we could bring to the table to entice new business to Homestead. What incentives could we put together to entice a new hotel, a new restaurant, jobs, simple as that, jobs. What came back to me, without affecting the bottom line, without affecting the actual budget, this was the only item. So my concerns tonight are not based on the fact that we didn't put our committee together and we didn't follow the actual drafted resolution for this. My concerns are, what do we have to offer to entice and draw new business to Homestead? Because I can give you just a quick example of our sister city, who's lured several businesses away already by enticing them with different forms of pluses for their businesses. Rent-free for 6 months, complete build-out paid for. We are in a competitive market. We are in a competitive market right now. And if we don't have something to entice these investors and these builders to continue to come forward, I think we're going to lose more businesses than we realize. And there's not a business that doesn't walk in my office, and the manager can sit there and you can verify this. They say, "What do you got to offer? What does CRA have to offer?" We don't even have a good CRA package together. And I'm saying this, thank God, the Herald's there at night, but we're not on TV. But we need to get together our CRA package, which I know you're working very hardly on it, very diligently with the new director. We'll get that done. But we need to come up with different things to entice new business to come to Homestead. This is a very tough economy, and it's time to step up as a city and do what other cities are doing to entice new business to Homestead, so that we can pay our police department, and we can pay our parks department, and we can pay the non-revenue producing departments, but yet protect us and provide quality of life for us. So with that said, my concerns tonight are not that we didn't follow the resolution of the committee and the other things that we don't have in place right now, because we could do that tonight and have it up and going. But my concerns are, this was the only item brought back to me after about 30 days. This was the only item brought back to my office to say, this is all we got. It won't affect our bottom line. Correct, Mr. Manager?
As far as incentives go, there's really two categories: those that are costly to developers and those that are direct incentives from the city. So when you talk about an incentive or a cost that we would waive that wouldn't cost the city money, this would be one of those. For example, if you waived concurrency, for example, whatever they'd have to do, we'd have to do instead, and it would cost us downstream. So unless your intention is to spend taxpayer money on public art, then you wouldn't necessarily have to fund an art program. And so that's one costless way of doing that, if that was your decision. Or a moratorium is something you could consider as well, waiving it for a year or two until the economy picks up.
Yeah, and let me ask the city attorney before I finish, and I'll open it to the floor. If we didn't go with the moratorium and we went with it case by case, would we be breaking any laws? 140 jobs are coming in here, but only 4 jobs are coming in here. Are we being selective?
Yeah, you would not be able to
do something like that.
Selectively pick and choose which projects to apply the ordinance to. It would have to be done across the board.
I understand. Okay, that's the only thing that was weighing out there. Okay, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I share similar concerns. I think I've directed the manager as well to say, we got to bring some sort of incentives here for businesses. So I think that conversation's been had. I support the mayor's, ambition to do that. Anything we can do to bring businesses in and make it favorable for them to help them establish jobs here, I wholly support. As it relates to the art in public places ordinance, again, I support this. I think it was a good idea. I think it's a good way to help beautify and kind of expound the standard of living here in the city of Homestead. So I support it. So I don't want to see it go away. So I can say I take that one off the table. I don't want to see us dissolve it. I think we should keep it in place. The problem I have with doing a moratorium, from a policy perspective, I'm not necessarily against it. I think that it makes sense given the economic conditions. The problem I have is more procedural, and that I inquired as to whether or not anyone's already actually paid into this fund. And if no one had, then yeah, I think it's easy. You do the moratorium and we go forward. Problem is there's like 5 or 6 people that have paid into it, so I'm not sure what we do with that. I mean, if we do a moratorium, then do we return the funds for the people who did cooperate and who followed the law, or do we say that anybody from this date forward who applies or does an application is then exempt, and everyone in the pipeline still has to participate? I mean, I think we get on that slippery slope, and that's the only thing I'm concerned about. If we do a moratorium, where do we draw the line? And same thing, if we do end up, if the majority of the council decides to dissolve it, do we return the monies we've already received? Those are some questions that I have that I think I need some answers to feel comfortable doing some sort of a moratorium. Otherwise, I think we leave it in place and, try to come up with some incentives that maybe offset this expense. And that way we still get our art, but there's still enough incentives to keep the businesses coming in. So those are some questions I have that I'd like answered.
Would you like me to address those now?
If you have answers, that'd be great.
Please.
Okay.
With regard to the ordinance that is in place, it was a legally adopted system program for those individuals who paid into the Public Art Fund. They did so pursuant to the applicability, and those are valid funds that you can spend and you can use. With regard to a suspension or a moratorium on the future applicability or collection of in lieu fees or donation of art or art on site, which are the three variations that could happen, you would not have to repay those funds. You would just suspend future collection for any development that would be coming through for a time certain, whether it be for a year or 2 years, and then you can always reevaluate it, look at it, and address it at that point. If market conditions have changed, you could reestablish the applicability or collection of those funds, or at that point you could reevaluate and continue with the suspension or moratorium on the collection or applicability of the ordinance if you so chose. If you did place a moratorium, if you did repeal the ordinance, then I would still advise that the money that you collected was still money you collected pursuant to the applicability of the ordinance, and you could spend without having to return those funds.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, please, Ms. Vice Mayor.
So did I understand you to say that if we went the moratorium route, we would not have to return the funds, but could just suspend to a later date?
Correct.
And after going back over the amounts of the money that have been collected, there, what is it, $100,000 approximately?
32. It's about 130.
$130,000 approximately for approximately, 6 or 8 different projects. Well, that's interesting because I do believe in the project, as Councilman Shelley said. However, I always think there's exceptions to the rule, and I don't know how to make exceptions to the rule without causing a problem. The exception to this rule is that I happen to be, you know how you go by, you don't ride down the street day after day, but you don't really look at something until it comes to your attention. And I happened to be over at the medical center on Friday, and I really stopped and I looked at that fountain, and this is the fountain that we're talking about, correct? In front of the...
Not yet, we will be.
Not yet.
That's next night.
Well, I know, but I have to say this because this has to do with
Okay.
my problem with this issue, and that is that there's always a reason for things. And so at this point in time, with what you've told me, is that I would go for the moratorium. I don't think that we should have to return the funds, because I think in the future we're going to go with that. But in these economic times, I mean, I don't want to discourage any businesses for coming in here. I just don't.
The one thing, and I think James meant this, is for the money that's existing there, do you want to hold it in the accounts, or do you want to appoint the committee and figure out how to spend that 130? Because you could have that one or either or would be an option for you. So you could do the moratorium one way or the other, and then on the 130,000 some odd dollars, you could appoint the committee and figure out how to spend it, do your master plan, and get ready for when you lift the moratorium and or spend the money.
If I may,
Sure.
in my opinion, I think we should move forward with putting together the committee. And I mean, this is an arduous process. I mean, because the committee just isn't a committee. There's certain people that have to be on that committee, and then there's the master plan. And then I was talking to Dennis earlier, because he and I work closely with Dade County with Parks and Recs, and we were talking about Dade County's Art and Public Place program. So, maybe we could learn from them too and put it all together. But I don't think we should stop the process. I just think that, you just have to be very aware that you don't want to stop progress as well. And it's hard to get people to come to cities. And I know Florida City. I'll say the name, Florida City, because, you know,
I mean, I said other cities.
they're very aggressive. They're very aggressive in their business promotions. And we could learn from them a little bit, I think. So that would be my point of view.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Burgess, go ahead.
There's two sides to this. When a developer or a builder comes in here, they don't have to specifically pay into this fund. They can enhance their building and make the project have something in it that can be considered. When we did the inception, and my Vice Chairman Tim Craig is out there, the inception is not just the city to take control and have money from a developer or whoever is coming in here to do the building. It's an opportunity, and it is an opportunity for a developer to come in and make his building special and make it somewhere, put something there that wants to draw people in to come see his building. And when he does that, perhaps he draws them inside to buy something, or draws them inside to sit down and eat, or just gets their attention there. And by getting the public's attention, he promotes his business, and he also, by doing this, enhances his community and the full structure. So it's not when somebody comes in, they only have to pay to the city. They can go about for a less percentage. They can do something on their own property to enhance it, which would fall under the guidelines of art in public places. So it's not when they come in, they just have to give us. They could go build something in their entryway, or whatever it may be, that enhances their property, that falls under our guidelines and is okayed, that would be part of their building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, my only concern about this is that if these persons or entities have already paid in these amount of monies already into this fund, and then we go now and do a moratorium, I just don't see how that can be seen as fair to those persons who've already paid in just this year. And the appearance of it is that since we have another item coming up behind this one, is that we're doing this, not saying that we're intentionally doing this, but it looks like we're doing this for favoritism for a certain builder, than just doing it because there's a problem with art in public places. And I think that's my only concern with this item coming to me at this time, is because we have another piece that's coming right behind it that's dealing with art in public places. And we're trying to put a moratorium on whatever the council decides about it. So I think that's my only concern with what we're presenting now.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And that was one of my concerns when I looked at the agenda and the order that we put it in, and I look at the, you know, the applicant that's next, you know, he's looking at us like, what are you doing? I'm here to present my case. And he has a very good one, by the way, I believe.
I can explain that.
But I went, wow, why didn't we reverse it to hear him out and let's see what they had, and then do our due diligence on this. But let me say real quick here too, of that 120 something, 130, the lion's share of it came from a charter school. Had that same school been a county school, which it is a county school, it's county funds, it's a county school, they wouldn't have paid us one dime. They are follow no guidelines, do they, Tom? They follow no inspection process. They do all their own. They are not required to put up signage per our sign ordinance. They're not required to do art in public places. So of that $128 something thousand, 108 belongs to Charter Schools USA. So call it a donation, call it what, but it wouldn't. I don't understand it because it's a charter school why they were fall in that category. So I want to make that, I want to put them on the table now. So the items, the other monies that were there were very, very small amounts, and I just, based on their square footage was so big with the school itself and then with the auditorium, the amount of square footage was unbelievable. So the multiplier that we use, that we put in place, if we're going to continue to do this, must be changed. And if the multiplier is not changed, then we need to take exceptions for all schools, private, public, whatever, because it's wrong what I think we're doing on that aspect of it. Thank you. Yes, who wanted the floor?
The progression of events really in this whole issue was, as the issue came up of both the charter school and we started looking into the art fee, that's when staff noticed that there was no implementation on the ordinance. And then their issue came up, and then as we tried to assess their issue, it didn't make sense to really have the one discussion without the other. So we tried to package them as best as we could so that you can make a decision on the art fee. And
Excuse me, you said charter school, you meant hotel.
Well, no, the charter school came first, and there was a concern about that, and we told them that they had to implement their fee. And what happened then is we looked at the ordinance to figure out how does this whole thing work. And when we looked at it, the committee hadn't been put in place. And so as the next one came in with an issue and try to assess what are we going to do, in the meantime, staff had been working on the implementation phase, which is where you see this memo from the staff. And so it didn't seem like it made sense for us to deal with their issue until we first dealt with the art.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions further on that? Why it's in line the way it is? We were hoping to set the committee, set the thing in motion, do it right for the next applicant. Any further questions? Mr. Mulbauer.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess the question is, are we going to basically get this committee up and running? That seems to be the idea of everyone here, and it would also be mine as well. I mean, I know that the past council put this in place. We're finding out nothing's been done with it, so I would have to support the idea of moving this committee forward. Say again?
We put it in place.
We agreed to it, but you guys worked on it prior to that. I remember that because I was actually sitting out there. You guys worked a lot on that. I remember that. So, and I know you're a big proponent of it. So I appreciate that. So I'd hate to put a hold on something that we've all been working hard on, and it is going to make a difference in our community. So I could support moving forward in reference to the committee appointments, in reference to that.
Okay, we're going to move forward with the committee, and we're going to move forward with the way the resolution's outlined. But there's still discussion on the table of the moratorium. Is there an interest in it or not an interest in it? Do we have a motion to move it forward and put a year moratorium on it, along with putting the committee in place and with putting the structure of everything in place so that we can, I guess, move those funds onto the street so the people who paid the hard-earned dollars for it can see what they paid for, whether it be a fountain, whether it be a painting, whether it be, whatever. I don't know the whole classification of art in public places, but whatever it may be, mural. We just had a mural done, downtown. Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir.
As far as the moratorium, I'm kind of torn on this one because I'm weighing the policy versus, I have similar concerns. That's the reason I asked some of the questions I did in the beginning that Councilman Williams does, and it's kind of the fairness. This is a program that's kind of new. Had it been around for years, and then we just decided to kind of take a pause, I would have less problems with it. But the problem I have is that you have these people that have complied with the ordinance, and now we're going to kind of say, well, thank you for your money,
Take a break.
Yeah, now we're going to take a break for anybody going forward, and the economic conditions were just as bad then when we passed it, if not worse than they are now. And so for me, as just an inherent fairness, I think it's just, I'm more comfortable saying, let's just move this thing forward as a whole. I could support maybe reevaluating some of the percentages, and maybe, I'm okay with the higher percentage. I mean, for the big developers, this doesn't really hurt that bad. I mean, it's a small amount. 1% is really a small amount of the total project. And when you're dealing in multi-millions, it doesn't really hurt as bad. It's not great, but it doesn't hurt as bad. But I think one of my concerns is that I think it kicks in at like $750 for smaller developers, and every dollar with financing now really does hurt with the smaller jobs and the smaller companies that we want to make sure come in here. So, I would like to maybe reevaluate the percentages or reevaluate the thresholds, and then maybe take a look at that going forward. But leave it as is for now and get it underway.
And that leads me to the second question. Would that be done at committee meetings to reevaluate the percentages, or does that have to be done at this council level?
The thresholds and the percentages are done so pursuant to ordinance. that you all approved in 2010. So if we want to, or you all want to modify those, we would need to do so by ordinance and bring it back to you at a later council meeting.
One thing you could consider is, as you set up your committee, as they figure out the ground rules, they're going to need to talk about master plan. Maybe they could start with a discussion of the ordinance itself, or we could start with you. It's really your call.
Mayor.
Yes.
I was just going to say that this, as I said before, this process is not going to be a short time. This is going to be a very lengthy process, and it's going to take a long time. I mean, I know how long it took me with the parks master plans. So you have a master plan in place with this as well. So I would say that you're not going to have it finished before the first of the year. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But I think it's going to take a long time, and especially now that you're talking about going in and changing things and changing percentages, and in this period of time, as the mayor said, the lion's share of this money that we have collected is from the charter school. Excuse me. You know, I asked a question to the manager the other day, did this money go into the general fund? You know, but it's a separate fund, correct? It's a separate set-aside fund.
Right. The only thing I don't know from a CAFRA perspective is whether it's actually frozen and can't be spent on anything else. The mechanics of it, I don't know, and I guess we're going to have to verify that with finance. Is Christie?
Shut it off.
Good evening, Mayor.
There you go, there we go.
Right there. Works a lot.
That's okay.
Good evening, Mayor and the council. Yes, the money has been set aside in a fund called impact fee, but it's set aside for a specific reason. We cannot be spent on anything else.
So it's a set-aside
Yes.
fund.
Yes, and I keep a tab of that, how much fund balance going year to year, so it cannot be spent on anything else.
Thank you.
I just, again, don't want to see anything to cause us to shy away from potential businesses coming to our city right now. And I kind of disagree with Mr. Shelley just a little bit. I mean, I think it's worse economic times this year than it is last year. You know, being in the real estate market, I'm telling you, it's awful. And so I'm gonna stand with wanting to do a moratorium. I think that would be the best thing. A moratorium just long enough to put everything in place, have a committee formed, have everything done, and I mean, I haven't talked to anybody in developmental services, but other than this hotel, I don't know of any other commercial businesses that are building right now. Do you know that fall into this category, Tom? What's the H.H. Gregg? Oh, okay.
It's like a Best Buy.
Well, has this H.H. Gregg already paid into this fund? And when are they?
They will be, 2 weeks, they want to get it open before, November 1st, so they got about 3.5 months to build that building completely.
I feel really out of the loop here. I didn't know anything about this building.
Yeah. You can get a report from them like every 2 weeks. Can I jump in on something?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you mentioned Navarro. Navarro is actually doing a build-out in a shopping center on phase 1. But they sat in my office and said that they would like to bring 2 other Navarros here throughout Homestead, so we didn't have 3. And I'll tell you, it'll make a difference. You'll see. When they build it, it's the size of a Walgreens or bigger. And it will make a difference, and they'll make a decision whether they build 2, or whether they build 3, or whether they go somewhere else. And it's going to be competitive. It's going to get more competitive as times get tougher. It's going to happen. And then they're going to be back here to us saying, what can we do to keep this business here in town? What can we do to bring Outback Steakhouse here? What can we do to bring another school here? And I tell you, shame on us, because we shouldn't be charging any school anything. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's ridiculous. Education's number one to us here. It's very important to us. I used to knock on doors in other 1995 to 2000, as you know, and they would say, police, police, police. Well, you knock on doors now, they say schools, schools, schools. So it's flipped, you know. It's police department got better and better, and schools got worse and worse. Simple as that. And it's just not productive to try to hog-tie these people with additional things like art in public places. And I voted for it, and I'm really sorry I did, because if we can't take a break now to give these people a break, you know, here in the market for the next year or so, then I think you're going to see us lose some really good opportunities. Because the bigger it is, the tougher it is. Super Target comes back here again, as they were here once. Super Target comes back here again, I promise you, you'll be at the table negotiating, because I'm not going to pay you 1% of what a Super Target costs for art in public places. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
Mayor?
Sir.
Then what, I don't know what the procedure will be, but why don't we go back and just change the ordinance so that so it can reflect what our present day decisions are going to be, so that we might be kinder to those businesses that are coming in. And just at the next council meeting, then we start to work on it and hash out these issues, and therefore we won't be back at the table. And this time we're a little bit more sensitive to the whole process. And I voted for it too the last time, but I know it was a carryover from the last council, so it was not like we had any major input in it. It was a work in progress, and so we were trying to get it done. But now we've seen the errors of that. So let's go back and revisit the ordinance, and then go from there. And that way. And my only other concern would be, when will the moratorium start?
Well, it could have started tonight, you know. Now it can start at our next meeting, you know, when we sit down and say, look, no business will pay over $10,000 or $20,000 for art in public places, because I'm telling you, a Super Target's not going to pay you $200,000 or $300,000 for art in public places. They're not going to do it. They're going to go somewhere else, just like they did already on us.
No, I agree. I wouldn't pay it either.
So it could start, you know, as soon as you vote and ratify it, simple as that. Put the committee together, put the whole thing together, move forward, and take a hard look at who really qualifies for this, who really should be paying this fee. We are forcing art on a Walmart or a Super Target. We're saying we want you to pay for our art. I believe that we need to see art through your dollars. I just don't think it's right. Not at that dollar amount. Mr. Williams, I love the idea you came up with. I think it satisfies all of us. We just need to come up with, to me, a bottom line number, a number that a Super Walmart or Super Target wouldn't think twice about writing a check for $10,000 or $20,000, not $200,000 or $108,000 to get an A-class charter school.
Mr. Yeah, and I agree. I think that, you know, my concerns on looking at it would be, look how it affects the small guy, you know, the lower threshold, maybe raise it, and then put a cap so that it's 1%, but for a big project, it's capped at whatever a good quality art would be. I mean, whatever that number is, I don't know what it would be, but we can do the research and find a good, reasonable number that, you know, it's not 1% of the entire project, but at a certain amount, that'll be a nice, you know, aesthetic quality to our city somewhere. So I like both of those ideas.
Thank you. And I think it's working to our favor now if I continue to air this, because also, too, we got a decision to make next, is what is art in public places? So if you didn't give us an outline to begin with, the former council, no disrespect, but what is art in public places? Is it a statue of a saint? Is it a statue of a beautiful woman? Is it a statue? Is it a fountain? Is it a beautiful fountain? What is it? So there's got to be a definition somewhere of what art in public place is. Is it that gold-looking guy who looks like, no pun intended, like Elvis on Washington Avenue? Not this Elvis, the Elvis Presley. But, I mean, the guy kind of looks like Elvis, you know, on Washington Avenue. Is that art in a public place? It's art to me. You know, I don't know, but we need some help here. We need some help of what art in a public place is. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I think that's what the committee will be set in place for, because that committee,
We've already got money in the
we've got groceries in the sack, but we have no committee. So for the committee, and I know with Tim Craig and Mr. Burgess heading it up, that it'll be a wonderful group of people.
Actually, we all had it.
Well, I know, but it was your inception, so I'm gonna put it on you. But that's what we're lacking. We're lacking that, as you say, and it shouldn't just be any kind of art, just splattered here, there, and the other. We should have some sort of, you know, a pattern, you know, some sort of theme throughout the city. It shouldn't, in my opinion.
That art's more than
I'm
painting.
just telling you.
Choose your committee members carefully.
Yes, choose carefully. But it should be something that conforms with what the city is looking for, and that's why you have an architect, you have all these different people on the committee, and I like that, Mr. Williams. I think you solved the problem tonight, in my opinion. So, thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, am I hearing then there's a consensus for coming back to you with
Yes.
some proposed amendments?
Yes, I would like to.
And in the meantime, because the ordinance says that the council, each member recommends and appoints one member,
Sure.
I'm assuming, I'm sorry. Right, so they recommend and the mayor appoints, so I'm assuming there'll be some process for the members, the board members to recommend committee members, council members?
Yes, please, start tonight, start looking for, there's a criteria in it
Yeah.
already in the ordinance.
What is the criteria?
It's in your book.
Find it right
There
now.
are several things.
Each council member recommends one public art committee member to the mayor, and then the mayor appoints the committee.
But, Mayor,
gonna be
if I may,
Sure.
doesn't it say in here somewhere, I'm going by memory now, that there has to be certain professions on the
Right,
committee?
that's what I'm saying.
So those professions have to be reflected by the committee
Yes.
recommendations to the mayor, correct?
Right, it's basically, it says, each member of the city council shall recommend a member to the PAC, which shall consist of 7 members and may include, may is the key word there.
Oh.
2 individuals chosen from the following disciplines: landscape architecture, urban planning, engineering, or related design discipline; 1 professional artist; 1 private citizen knowledgeable in the field of public art, education, and community
Jesus Christ.
affairs; and 1 private citizen from the development community.
No, man, I don't have that many people.
So it says may, so it's optional, so I guess that's a guideline for, you know, your recommendation to the mayor, and then the mayor, I guess, approves.
And you want us to find one of those persons. I think that needs to change too. It's
Well,
too,
it says may, so we're,
It does say may, so you could completely go in a different direction, and that's,
I'm making my nomination now. I get mine in first.
Mayor, can I make one statement?
Sure, please.
I think it's important that our development services and people back there in the planning department are letting these people know also that it's not, like I said earlier, that they just have to pay into this fund, but if they enhance their building somehow, when they're bringing their preliminary plans down, or they're having discussions with us before they even start plans, or with any of the council members, that we let them know that this is an ability, because that's even a less costly feature, thing for them to do than it is to pay into the fund.
I hear you loud and clear. Being a builder, I'm going to tell you that it's a very small percentage. It's about 15 to 20% is what they're going to save by building it themselves or doing what they're going to do. I saw your breakdown on the fountain, and it shows every single cost on it, and at the bottom it said, you know, overhead, and when it's 15%, whatever. So it's still going to be a substantial, at the rate that we have 1%,
Right, I
and build
understand
these
that.
huge buildings, you're going to knock these people out of the market. I think you're going to make, whether they can go right down the street, Mike, don't tell anybody that, but they can go right down the street, or they can stay right here, it's going to make a difference.
Right.
$100,000 will definitely make a difference. And it's going to happen. And it'll be more than $100,000 for one of the big retailers. If the school was 108, it'll be 208. So I still think, I like the idea Mr. Williams has, is we look at this and cap it, and we cap it reasonably and fair, that we get some beautiful art in public places, but yet we don't chase away the retail
And that
operations.
was never the intention of the committee.
I know that was never the intention, but I think that the square footage we used on the charter school was wrong. Simple as that. 1% of the square footage, it just didn't add up. I mean, and I remember when they came back and they argued with Tom, and anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but.
Okay, so Mayor, then we'll come back with a recommendation, and I'm assuming the members of the council will come to you with their recommendation for committee members.
Yeah, I've already got the first one right here. Okay, so you come back with the recommendations, and you're going to come back with what you think, give us some suggestions on the capping, and are we coming up with that?
We'll give you some options.
Okay, give us some options, that's all we want. And that'll happen at our council meeting.
We'll do our best.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. All right, item 2, art in public places. We're going to, so right now there's no motion, no nothing. We're just going to let this move on to the next meeting, okay? So tab 4, motion to,
Mayor, this is also a discussion item, and
Okay.
we had several of these at this meeting. It don't require any votes other than some direction from you, and this one is on the fountain issue.
Tab 4, yeah, motion to place 188 on the council agenda, Marriott Resort
I move it.
water fountain. Thank you, second. Okay. Staff report? Just tell us about the history and what's happening.
Mayor, the applicant is here. I guess probably the best thing to do is have them outline their case and...
Not to give you kudos, but please come to the podium, and I actually drove the other day because I really had never taken a look at it. It is humongous, and it is beautiful, and it does look like art. So that's why I need, what is art? Because it's art, and it's huge.
Mayor, when we did do the initial introduction of this ordinance and all that, this type of thing is what we were looking for, and thinking that that's where, those type of things help enhance the community, a development, a business, or whatever. So a fountain does fall under what we envisioned, and one of the things that we did in our when we had our PowerPoint display up on in there. That is the type of things that we were envisioning, not a Rembrandt redo
On every
of
building
the
in town, yeah. Okay, sir, name and address for the record.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is George Cepero, PMG Asset Services, 4651 Sheridan Street, Suite 480, Hollywood, Florida, 33021. I'd like to talk a little bit about the improvement in the Villa Portofino East and Villa Portofino East commercial community. There is a fountain out there, and that fountain cost about $124,000. The code that the city has passed, although it's called Art in Public Places, it allows for a wide gamut of things. It's perhaps more properly should be called improvements, public improvements in public general areas. Specifically in the code, fountains are allowed. So there's no disagreement with staff on that. I don't believe that just because it's a fountain, it's allowed. Where I think staff needs direction is the fact that the fountain's already built. Because the statute gives you a couple of choices as to what to do when you first come to build something, how you make that contribution. And it says, well, you give us the cash, or you include it in your design. We've done the latter. We just happen to have done it before we came to you with this project.
Before you're done.
So the only question is, what is the intent? Even though the code is silent as to what happens when the improvement is already done, the only question is, what was the intent of the resolution?
which we believe was obviously to encourage the use of improvements and installation of improvements in public places, as opposed to punishing companies that already made an investment and are going to have to make a second payment for the same thing practically. We don't think that's correct. We don't think that's the intent of the resolution. Our intent when we put in this fountain, which, like I said, cost a lot of money, was to improve the general area or community, the overall community. That's the same as the intent of the resolution. The object that we built is allowed by the statute, so it's a question of time. If it's chosen perhaps the wrong way, disfavorably to us, it may send a harmful message from the city that if you come in and you take a risk and you invest and you put money up front, that you may get caught in a catch-22 and a new rule comes in and you're going to have to pay for the same thing afterwards. And again, I don't think, I am sure that it's not the intent of the city. The intent of the city was simply to, and we agree we're big on art, as you can see by our fountain. From our offices to our projects, our public improvements are important to us. We are a responsible developer, builder, business partner to the city. We believe that it's not a matter of numbers, just build in and sell it as quickly as possible. We believe in having a reputation and having a certain name for ourselves, which is represented by our product, as opposed to other companies that may just come in and do the lowest common denominator, which is why we actually think, while maybe the timing right now because of the economy, it's perhaps a little bit of an additional hurdle, an additional intimidating factor, just somebody coming in from the outside. Overall, we agree it's a good idea, because otherwise you are going to get somebody that comes in and does the lowest common denominator, just trying to sell it as quickly as possible or get out. Or wait until the very end to build something and then say, well, we didn't have the funds, it didn't work out, I'm sorry. We, on the other hand, put in the investment up front. So we're just in this catch-22 of timing that we put in the investment up front. So we just need council to give staff direction that timing is not an issue, that this is existing improvement is allowed, and that the future improvements, the future projects that we wish to bring to the same area will also benefit from this improvement, because like I said, this fountain is costs about $124,000. The fee that is calculated right now, as the city has brought to us for the Marriott, is $48,000. So that leaves a balance of about $60,000, $70,000 that we'd like to also use in future projects, and it would be fair for those future projects to benefit from, again, the improvement we've made up front, not afterwards. The improvement was meant to bring in development. We like to not be punished for it. We believe that's the right way to do business, and this would be an unintended consequence, obviously, of a good idea, of a good thought that this resolution would be.
Okay, thank you very much. Council?
Yes, Mayor?
Yes.
Question to, if this ordinance was in place when the Hampton Inn was built, what would be the percentage that they would have to pay?
About the same size building.
So it's about the same. So how much money does that?
We did $48,000.
What, 48,000?
Yeah, the Hampton Inn was about the same size. So I mean, we didn't do the calculation. We were just told what the fee would be.
Okay. And then you're saying that for future projects, that the balance will carry over to those future items that you're presently trying to develop, right?
Yes, we brought in a little site plan of the community. We also passed out the picture of the fountain, which I noticed was also in the packet, but this was colored. The fountain is the heart of the community, the entrance to the community. You have to go through the roundabout where the fountain is located. This is Campbell Drive. Turnpike's over here. So you come in through here, you have to go through this roundabout in order to be able to be distributed throughout the community.
Right.
We have 3 other parcels in front of the 2 hotels and 1 other parcel over here that could be restaurants, could be retail, could be several things, and those would be the locations that would benefit from this. We're not talking about off-site somewhere else, we're talking right here.
Question. Now, the medical center is also something that you all built as well?
The medical center is built, we don't own it, that's a condo office building, and it's completed.
So it's done?
It's done.
Okay. And if we had to give a dollar amount on that one, what would that be?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm getting at is that if we're going to give you credit, when we give you credit for the Hampton Inn, the courtyard and stuff that's already existing since the fountain is existing, I think what I'm trying to understand is that you wanted credit for the future presentation of the courtyard and any other new item that comes along, but for the things that already have been built, do we apply, I mean, because I just don't, I'm trying to really grasp what you're trying to do. I understand the concept. You want us to give you credit for what you've already done. So you did it up front, now it should apply to that which we're trying to do right now. Is that right?
Sort of, Councilman. We are asking to be given credit for projects that are done after the code was put in place. I don't think it would be fair to go back to the beginning of time and move forward and because we can go back to improvements we've done throughout the community. Besides this fountain, we've put in about $200,000 in pavers and landscaping and things that may or may not fit within
Right,
this.
you understand what I'm saying? You're trying to apply for one area, but then you don't want to go back and apply for the other.
Well, we're trying to apply for once the code was put into place, which is from moving forward.
Okay.
That's what we would like credit for.
Okay.
We believe that would be fair.
Hampton was built prior to.
Right, it was built prior, but you didn't know that we would have this art in public places ordinance either.
No, we found out about this ordinance actually this year.
Exactly, so if you found out, then you want us to give you credit for something that you had no idea about, but you want to be able to use it so you can get credit for your current project.
Well, I don't think whether we knew about it or not is what I'm understanding, or what you may be implying is that, well, if you built it because you knew there was going to be this law, then we'll give you credit. That's not what I'm arguing. With all due respect, I'm arguing that we built it because it was the right thing to do. And we're asking not to be punished now, to be, once we've already done it up front, because remember, there's a lot of developers that either don't do it at all, or they do it at the end of the project. And at the end of the project, they may build it, or they may say, well, you know, things don't work out like we thought, and then they build something inferior than what was promised, or nothing at all. We built it up front. We should get credit for that, whether or not, we didn't have a crystal ball, so we didn't know what you were going to plan right now.
Right.
But we did build it, and we've done a lot of other improvements. The architecture of our buildings is...
Let me tell you my position. I'm going to go whatever the consensus of the council, but I just don't think it's fair, okay, because you can't bring this in. No.
You could have put a bus stop.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just saying, I want to go with the consensus of the council, because I really don't think you can go back and be fair to those persons who've already paid in and then ask them to give you credit for this, because the gym could be art in public places. You know, I mean, I just think if we're going to do it, we start fresh, and that we don't go back and try to apply certain things, because it just doesn't look good. But I want to go with the consensus of what my colleagues agree on, so I'm not going to give you a hard time in that, but I just don't, my personal opinion, I just don't think it's fair in how it's being done, but I yield to my colleagues.
And I think you said it wrong, where you should have said, we knew this was coming, and that's why you...
Well, yeah, well, and if I may clarify, Also, there is a bus stop that we've donated.
We should joking.
It's actually right on the roundabout that we've given an easement for this.
Yeah.
Now, God bless you. You did a good job. Listen, you did a good
Right,
job.
right.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
I was here on the dais when you were building the medical project, and quite honestly, you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to do anything, right, Tom? I mean, you could have put a couple plants and a tree in the middle of that roundabout, and that would have been the end of it. But it is a beautiful piece of art. But I just had a question of the attorney, or proposed a question to the attorney. Because when we talked before the meeting, I was just asking you some general questions about the hotel, and you were telling me about this beautiful art scope in the back, in the courtyard with the restaurant, and that could also be seen from other parts, probably from the Turnpike and other places, a new beautiful water feature that you asked the Marriott permission to put in, rather than, I think the Marriott requires a fire pit or something, and instead you're going above and beyond and spending more money and putting in a beautiful water feature in the back that will be visible to many, many people. So would that constitute, my question was, could that be in place of, and I think you said, James, that would be a committee decision, correct? Or am I getting way off track here?
When a developer places art on site as their option under the regulations, what the regulations then specify is that if you place the art on site, it needs to be in a location where it's accessible to the public and it can be seen from the public in order to be classified as art. In other words, you couldn't put it in a corridor somewhere that wasn't open to the public, or the public wouldn't have a chance to see it, because then you would not be furthering the intent of the public art ordinance. So generally speaking, if there were a PAC committee in place, public art committee in place, when an applicant would come in to choose the option to place art on the site, that would go through the department, then to the PAC committee, who would then make a recommendation to you all with regard to accepting, or not, I shouldn't say accepting, but authorizing the placement of art on the site, and whatever the developer is proposing as art on the site would be subject to the city's approval.
So
what I'm saying is there's not a public art committee in place. I mean, potentially what you've mentioned, yes, could be considered as art, as art on the developer's site, but I don't have the specifics in front of me to really...
Because I know at one time we even talked about allowing people to put paintings. Remember, John, people were talking about putting art inside the lobbies of businesses and things, as we were starting to discuss and talk about the concept of art in public places. So to me, I get where Mr. Williams is coming from, but that is the main entrance to the Marriott and to the Hampton and to the complex of the medical building. But in fact, they are putting, am I correct, am I telling the story correctly, that you are putting a water fountain feature in the back and it wasn't required? And could you elaborate on that just a little bit, or?
Sure. The Marriott, it's a franchise. They have certain requirements, as you've experienced with the Hampton Inn. One of the things they're required is a fireplace in the back sort of courtyard where people sit around and congregate. And that's not perhaps something that South Florida would be the best climate for, unless you're going to barbecue on it. So we convinced them to, instead of doing this fireplace, do a water feature, and we're going to have this granite area, with the water sort of fountain going up in it, and then it drains towards the center, and it's not a a bowl, it's sort of the ground itself, it's one of these that you can walk through, kind of thing.
In other words, like a splash pad that we have in the park, but not like that.
Okay. Okay. All right, Ms. Shelley?
Yeah, I'll chime in with my 2 cents. As far as this particular case, I did speak with Mr. Avo, and I kind of went back and forth with him on the issue. And the way I kind of look at it is that the Hampton Inn was a similar sized project, and so if your Art and Public Places fee would have been $48,000 for this one, it would probably have been $48,000 for the last one. And the Hampton Inn was built not too long ago, 2 years ago or so. So I don't want you guys to be punished for being early adopters for doing what we now have mandated everyone else to do. So I kind of see this as, I can see you getting credit for this particular project, saying you're even, but going forward, any project you put on your site going forward is going to be subject to any ordinance if it's still in place, the Art and Public Places. I don't see this as let's continue doing credits and we did this and we did that, kind of like Councilman Williams said. So as long as the understanding is that after this project, this Marriott, then your Art and Public Places is satisfied for those 2 projects, but going forward, you have to comply with whatever ordinance happens to be in place at the time.
Councilman Shelley, obviously, whatever council decides, that's what we'll have to work with. But I like to emphasize that I think there's a big difference between something that gets built up front and asking credit for it, and for a city government to say, hey, well, this rule wasn't in this law, this code wasn't in effect back then, but we're still gonna, duck you for it and take from what you've done. Whatever it is, whether you think it was big or small, we did it where many wouldn't have done it. Now, we should get the credit for, particularly in these very hard times that we're in.
I understand. I mean, I think we're saying the same thing. What I'm saying is, I'm okay with the credit on this particular application. I would vote in favor to give you credit for the fountain. What I'm saying is I don't support you coming back later and saying, oh, now we're building a restaurant out here in this out parcel, or we're building this out here in the out parcel. That fountain counted for that project. I'm saying that I wouldn't support that. So I just want to make sure we're all clear. We're all talking the same language. So.
And realize we're gonna work this Art and Public Places. And we're gonna come back with hopefully some reasonable caps. So.
Mayor, I have also one thing to add to the pile before you make your decision.
Oh,
And that is, as I look at this language where it says donation on site, I just want to make it clear that while they're using this as a credit, I prefer not to be stuck with the maintenance of the fountain, and that it be their fountain, but it's just, it's their requirement. It's a credit for their requirement, but we won't own the fountain and we won't be responsible for the fountain.
It's your fountain.
it's yours.
There's a financial system in place that pays for the maintenance of the fountain, irrigation, landscaping.
Everything you've done has been, you've crossed the
Thank you,
T's and dotted the I's, and I applaud you for it. And I'm sorry we're going back and forth so much tonight, but, it's
How you
the
do
way
it?
it is. Yeah, that's how you do it.
Well, we want to work it out and make you guys happy. That's why we're here. And Larry Abel wanted to be here today. He just had a conflict with something else. He wished he could have been here himself.
Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I think we're all in agreement. They get credit for this one, but not anything else, until we figure out what that cap is.
So you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I move that we, even though I said I'm gonna go with the consensus, but, I move that we give them, I don't like to use the word credit, but, that we give them, credit for,
The fountain.
for the fountain. But going forward, they're subject to under the ordinance. I think that's the new ordinance. I think that's a middle ground. I think we've compromised.
Yeah, all right. Have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second on the floor that we're going to accept this fountain as Art and Public Places for the new Marriott Hotel in lieu of the $48,000, what is the total dollar amount?
I believe your agenda states 48,000.
Okay, 48,000. We got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, let's do a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Woolman,
Yes.
Councilman Burgess,
Yes.
Councilman Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilman Shelley.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes?
Mayor Bateman.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council.
Okay, tab 5, another interesting one here. Decision on neon signs. A motion to move it on for discussion?
Move.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Do you want to start, Mr. Manager? You want to just give us a little staff update and make it easy? And
Actually, Chief, did you want to start us off, or I'll kind of set the, I'll set the table here. Basically,
Can I keep it simple? Maybe I'll take
code enforcement has
code
cited some
compliance.
stores. Compliance has cited some stores for neon sign violations. We've looked at the code. Neon signs are prohibited. We thought this might be something that you want to revisit, since this is a relatively new ordinance.
Thank you.
And it's your will.
If I may take the floor, and usually I allow counsel to speak first, but I can tell you that I had thought by now that we would have had 3 or 4, possibly 3 or 4 workshops on the ordinances, sign ordinances. It hasn't happened, and no disrespect to the chair that I appointed, Ms. Lobos. I know she's been very busy. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to appoint a new chair. At this point, I would like, if the council has no objections, I'd like to appoint Elvis Maldonado, who is a business owner and I think understands and feels some of the pains of this economy. So what I'd like to do, with the council's permission, is appoint him, and let's get some meetings going, let's get some public discussion going, let's get some council discussion going, and until we have at least 2 meetings, I'd like to ask for a moratorium on all these neon signs, that the 22 of them, or however many are out there. I can't tell you how many are out there. There are many of them. But we rode today, the manager and I rode for about an hour, and there are all different types. So we need to understand. Tom kind of understands it one way, and somebody else understands it another way, and so we need to understand neon strings to neon bulbs to neon whatever. So instead of, just belaboring this thing all night, if we can get us maybe a 90-day moratorium, and let's go to work on some workshops and figure out what we want our retailers to be able to hang in their windows. Simple as that. Is that self-explanatory?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I have no problem necessarily having a moratorium, because I do think we need to get these workshops going, and I don't want to see us make a definitive decision to say, let's enforce it, and then all these people have to take their neon signs down, which is a cost and expense, to then find out it's okay, to then go put them back up, or vice versa. The only concern I have, though, is making sure that there's not a mad rush by our business owners to go buy neon signs because they want to beat this, get in the kind of the grandfather period, or they want to have this neon sign. So as long as we put some sort of safeguard in place so that if you have a neon sign now, we're not going to make you take it down until we determine whether it's a policy decision we want neon signs. But if you go out and buy one, then, it's at your own risk. I don't know,
Well, I think the department's been pretty kind, because there are far more than 22 of them out there, and just 3 or 4 plazas. So I think we need to look at it, and I hear you loud and clear. I think we need to really see what the magnitude of it is, and what the enhancement, and what it really does for every business out there, because it looks like it's in the majority of businesses in our community, and not only ours, other communities. I took some time on my little vacation, and I rode around a beautifully redone city in Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, and the majority of the retailers have neon signs. Open, close, and the latest and greatest of these neon signs, they say a multitude of things. It'll be a box 18 inches by 36 inches, and it constantly rotates and flips, and may tell you what type of pizza they make, and may tell you what type, when they're open, when they're closed. It just does a multitude of different things, so these people can get the message out of what's on sale for that day. There are far more obtrusive problems out there with signage right now. The manager and I saw a day that just totally floored us than the neon signs. Far more. Where complete windows you cannot see in, that are totally blocked by this new perforated type of signage, where when you stand inside the building, you can see out perfectly fine. But when you're on the outside, you cannot see nothing on the inside. And it has all the images of what they want on these windows. And I'm talking 8 foot tall, 30, 40 feet long. You cannot see in one store at all. I have no idea how that got through, but it's incredible. That one just blew me away. And it's a perforation type thing where I've seen it on small, like the back of a truck window, where it's got a name on it, and in the back you can see out fine. In the truck you can see out, but you can't see in. So that one really caught me. So there is definitely some problems out there that I know that you're dealing with, and I feel your pain because they call me, and I feel it. I go to you get something to eat, you know. It's like, what about this? What about that? So I just want to take some time and work on it, get the ones that are really abusing and doing the things that we don't want to kind of, if for lack of better words, junk up our city, but then also the ones that are really helping these retailers market what they're trying to market and stay alive. I think we need to be fair, and we will be.
A question, Mayor.
Yes.
Just, and I know we're not going to get into deep discussion on it, but is this ordinance, are we saying that they can't put neons inside their building, or it's just on the outside?
It's period. The ordinance reads period.
No neon signs.
Period. So we need to work on it.
Yeah, because I think the county doesn't allow you to put it on the outside of your building.
It has it.
But on the inside, that's
Well,
your...
that's why we're going to work it.
Yeah.
And this came from the former council, I believe. This was in the last year. I'm sorry. That's what I was told. I looked at the date.
Yeah, when would it...
Made.
08, I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
The year before.
04 and 08.
But as I remember, John,
You were there as well.
I don't think that it was talked about, though, in any of these kind of details. I mean, it was just like a brief overview, you know. So now we're getting into the nitty-gritty like we did with code with John, and I think that that's what we need to do. We need to go, you know, sign by sign by sign, because to me, number 3 in our book and number 10 are the same things.
Yeah.
Now, I don't understand. So the flashing signs
10 just totally depletes neon, period.
right,
Yeah,
but
you and I looked at that.
but I mean, animated or flashing signs, to me, a neon sign is a flashing sign. So I think we just have to have samples and look at everything, and it's going to be a mess. And I think our code department, like you say, there's a lot more important issues right now than a neon sign.
All right, so just to clarify, though, assuming this is the direction of the council, is it would be to suspend enforcement of neon signs, but also, in speaking with James and Richard Weiss before, we probably want to do a zoning in progress ordinance just to protect ourselves if somebody puts up a neon sign in the interim, that we're covered, so that we have the flexibility. So we'll bring that back to you if that's the will of the council.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Let
would
me ask,
agree.
sure. Is there a fee for the neon sign? When they go get a neon sign, Tom, do they have to come in and pay a fee for the sign?
Permit fee.
Yeah. Advertising their product. Yeah. Well, I can tell you what, you're going to make a lot of money, because there's a lot of them out there. A lot of money. Okay, so we've got a motion. Let me back up real quick, and Mr. Maldonado, do you accept?
No, I would accept it. I greatly appreciate it. I being on the council and obviously owning a business here in the city, I deal with a lot of the businesses here in Homestead on a day-to-day basis, and I know the struggles that they're going through in this tough economy. And any little thing that we could do to help them out keeps these stores full. I mean, you start to eliminate signs and all these things, and you put communities or folks out of business, and then what do we have, like a ghost town here? Who's going to want to move in there? So it's a fine balance that we have to keep, where we have some ordinance in place, and we don't want it to get very, we don't want it to get out of hand. At the same time, it's a balance that we need to strike to make sure that our businesses are able to function here in Homestead. Because if the businesses are not here, they're going to go to Miami. And again, if we can keep business here local, keep this place from looking like a ghost town, we've done a good thing. So I know it's a balance, and hopefully with this committee, and I appreciate your confidence in me to finish up what has been started. So hopefully we'll be hammering this out within the next couple weeks, or, whatever it takes to get it done. Count me in.
So you feel 90 days is enough?
I think 90 days is more than
No,
enough.
we can always
Yeah.
extend. Okay, so we have a motion on the table.
Chief?
I was going to say that, I guess I give with the manager, because we were already going back and first of all, they were giving warning, they wasn't, wasn't.
That's very good.
But we went back and told them to hold off for 30 days. Now you want us to go back and tell them 90 days?
Let them be.
Yeah, I would say on those 22 that we're going into workshops, and the workshops will be reported very soon. You can come up with a date, can you not? So that maybe the code compliance officers can say that these workshops are going to take place on these days, so that they can be part of the workshops. That's the whole idea, is to get the public input. So if we can get a date to you, Chief, that you can give to the code compliance officers that may be involved in these 22 warnings, they go back and say, here are the dates, here's the date of the first meeting. And at the first meeting, you'll be able to set the second date, and the second meeting, the third date, until you work this out and we get some public input on, and there are so many different types of neon signs. I think it just needs
I
to be...
definitely want to get the input of not only the business owners, but as well as the community as well, because it's, we're both here. The difference is that the business owners a lot of times don't live here, so they don't get to really vote. So there's always the conflict of, I live here, I pay taxes here, and this is what I want for my community, you have to do what I say. At the same time, we need to realize that those businesses are there to service the community. So we, even though they don't live here, and they don't have a voice, but at some point we need to help them out. It's as a city, it should be our responsibility to help them out.
Well, like the mayor said, we went through and dealt with the other code issues, and this should have been taken care as well. It'll make our job a lot easier.
Right.
And so I appreciate what you're saying and everything, but all we need is some guidance. And we have no problem following instruction, but we need some instruction.
I hear you loud and clear, and I think on this and others, we're gonna workshop them to death. We're not gonna stop. Hopefully, in the next 7 to 10 days, you can have the first meeting set.
Sure.
And if you can let the chief know within the next 48 hours, so he can immediately get those people back on.
I'll get on it right away.
Tell them to flip. I mean, they listen to you well, because I'm telling you, the pizza shop I went into the night that asked me, when do you think you guys will make a decision on this, had every one of their lights off. I looked up at them, they had 4 of them, and I was like, oh no, we're not turning it back on till we're told. So, JJ Pizza right there in that plaza on in Campbell. I walked in for the first time, and they you know who I am? Yeah. Well, when are you gonna have? When are we gonna have a workshop? When's this gonna happen? When's that gonna happen? So anyway, we're gonna have the workshop. We'll get it done. But I'd say allow them to go ahead and flip them back on until we get this workshop, a couple of these workshops worked out, because they had not turned them on. Okay, so 48 hours, you'll get something.
We're just getting direction on this, right? That's it? No, okay.
We're clear on this. We'll bring back a zoning in progress, but in the meantime, we'll suspend enforcement as of tonight.
Okay, so we need a vote on that?
We're fine on it.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. All right, thank you, Chief. All right, tab 6. Thank you.
Should wrap this up.
Let's get going. I hear you loud and clear. Okay, motion to place 184, council agenda approval of NSP program sub-recipient agreement between the city of Homestead and Galata.
Move it.
Okay, second, you got it? Okay. Staff report?
Mayor, it's staff's recommendation, the mayor and council authorize the city manager to execute the attached sub-recipient agreement between the city of Homestead and Galata.
Thank you. Questions from council? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Tab 7, motion to place 107 on council agenda. Increase, okay, thank you. Staff report?
Mayor, staff recommends the mayor and council authorize an amendment for the city manager to increase the funding for purchase order number 110320 to Oiltech Industries by $10,000. This purchase order was opened to cover the repairs and maintenance required for the proper operation of the electric utility bucket truck and large equipment fleet. Total purchase order amount is not to exceed $35,000.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And before we adjourn, anything from the manager?
No.
Anything from the city attorney? Anything from council further?
One quick request, if I could, sir.
Yes, please.
I got one. SOS and the police department and South Dade Weed and Seed are doing a book fair over at Lillet Sports at the stadium. They did reach out to the Garzas and never heard anything back from them. The second request that I've gotten from them is they'd like to see if the trolleys might possibly be available to help get people from the Southwest District, Northwest District that are needy families over to the stadium on Saturday, August the 13th. They're running this from 10 to 2. I didn't know if that was a possibility or not, if they could maybe, if there were any trolleys that could go that way at all to help out. So that was a request that I had. Perhaps we could get somebody to look at that and see if that's at all possible. Thank you.
Okay. I received a call. Any other questions, Andy? I received a call from the CEO of Dade Medical College early this morning, and they were fortunate last night to have a 1-hour meeting with our new governor, along with 9 other business members of the state of Florida. And their top issue to the governor was our truck bypass. The governor's staff member called me back today. We gave her all the ins and outs of what we've been going through for the last 10 years. And if he can't do it, nobody can. That's all I can say. So kudos to Dade Medical College that they used their time that they had there and made that one of their priorities. And I think you're going to see some relief now. And I know that we've tried for 10 years, and I've tried for 18, 19 months, and I serve on that board. And it's like pulling teeth to get to first base with anything with DOT. And I think we're going to finally see some relief here. So, also, I want to report on my trip to Washington D.C. On behalf of our energy service here in Homestead. And Barbara had to watch me perform. So Barbara, don't tell anybody how I did. But I will report on it during the council meeting when we're live on TV, and tell them how well you did there and how well you liked there and all those good things. All right. Okay. Thank you all very much. We stand adjourned.